Okay, so we're going to do a quick little review of parabolas here. First, we're just going to fill in the table, and I'm going to do the first couple here and then have you pause the video and fill in the rest. And so this equation is given in factored form, which is sort of handy. So we're just going to plug in x values and then multiply them. So for this first one, when I plug in -5, I'm just going to do a little bit of scratch work here. I'll have -5 plus 5, and then -5 minus 1. And so that gives me 0 times -6. And of course, 0 times anything is 0. Okay, so that's the first one. And now I will plug in the next one. So again, I'll do a little bit of scratch work over here. So I'm plugging in -4. So -4 plus 5, and then -4 minus 1. And so I get 1 times -5, which is -5. And so that's that y value there. Is -5. And so pause the video now for just a second and finish filling out the table. You can use your calculator. Don't use the calculator on your phone. Grab a calculator if you need to. A lot of them you can probably do in your head, and then we'll come back and check your answers. Okay, hopefully you had the table filled out now, and so here are the answers. So the next one's -8, then -9, then -8, then -5, then 0, and then 7, 16, and 27 for the last one. And once we have those points on our table, we can start graphing it. And so we'll just go through and graph them now. So we get -5, comma 0, -4, comma -5, -3, comma -8, and so on. And what you'll notice is this thing down here at the bottom. We'll come back to this, the rest of the graph and the x-intercepts and vertex in a second, but we've talked about symmetry before, but we haven't talked about buddy points. And so buddy points are points that sort of match up on the two halves of the parabola. And so what you see is, here's my vertex. I've sort of started turning around now, and we start seeing these buddy points. And so when I go 1 point either direction from the vertex of the parabola, both of these end up at -8. And so I can sort of see up here I was at -5, so I expect my next point here is going to match up with that, -5. As I keep going to the right, I'm going to keep matching up with the buddy points over here. So the next one should be 0. When I check the table, it is. When I go to 2 from my table, I know I'm up at 7. And now, even though I didn't fill out the table back to the left of -5, I know there's a buddy point over here. And so I go 1 more x over. And so I know there's a point there at 7 as well. And then 3 is 16. That's just off our grid there. I'll put it there. And again, the next buddy point would match up 1 over here. One over here. And so we get that nice symmetry. Those points are always matching up with one on the other half, and that vertex is dividing them right in half. And so there's sort of that line of symmetry, and we see those buddy points lining up on either side of that with the same y value. A couple other things. X-intercepts are what makes y equal to 0, and so we see them on our table. It also comes from setting the two factors equal to 0. And so we get x-intercept of -5. That makes sense. There it is on the graph. And we have x minus 1 equals 0. We get x equals 1. Also matches up on the graph. And those are equally spaced from the vertex. Vertex is in the middle of the two x-intercepts. Remember, we found it on our graph already, but just algebraically, we know that we average them. So we get -4 over -2, or sorry, -4 over 2. Which is -2, that's the x-coordinate. And then to find the y-coordinate, I'm going to plug -2 into the equation. But I already did that up on the table, and so there's -2, comma, -9 is the vertex, which matches up with what I had on the graph. So hopefully that makes sense. Plugging in points, plotting them, thinking about this buddy point and the vertex. And this will come up a lot this week as we work on our application problems. A couple other notes down at the bottom. First is when we have a negative in front of both those factors, it tells me that the parabola is upside down. And sometimes there is an a value in front also. It's a number, and that we haven't talked about a whole lot, but that can sort of stretch the parabola out make it more narrow. It can also make it wider. And this is sort of the new thing for this week, is we can figure out what A is if we're given some information. And so this one says the vertex is at -1 comma -48. And so that means if x is -1, so I'm replacing x with -1, I don't know what A is, so I'm just going to write A. I know that y has to be -48. Right? So I replaced x with -1, y with -48, and I'm trying to figure out what A is. Well, I just sort of clean things up here a little bit. I get -4 minus, sorry, -1 minus 4 is -5. And then -1 plus 6 is 5. And so now I get -5 times 5 is -25. And so now I have -48 equals A times -25. And so I divide, and this one doesn't come out very nicely, but you get 48 divided by 25 equals A, and you can do that on your calculator if you want to. 48 divided by 25 is 1.92 is what your A value is. So you're able to figure out A by plugging in the X and the Y, and then just doing a little bit of algebra to figure out what that A value is. And so now I know this parabola opens up because that A is positive. It's going to have that vertex in the right spot. Thank you very much.